Hey, everyone. It's a Techstrong Gang kind of Wednesday. We've got a lot going on for you here. We've got is the bloom off the cloud computing with AI rose. Are AI ready organizations really ready? And the day shift left died. All that and more on Techstrong Gang. Hey, everyone. As I said, happy Wednesday to you. It's Alan Schimmel from Techstrong. I am really thrilled I'm the only one in the studio today, so I'm really thrilled. I got the cameras all to myself. But we have a great gang online and remote with us to come at you today. Let me introduce him to you. First of all, usually sitting to my left, but he's back home up in New York today. Our Chief Content Officer, Mike Bizarre. Hey, Mike, good to have you on remotely.
There you go. Always happy to be here wherever I am in the world.
I am sitting at the big table. Joining Mike, also from New York, but they're not in the same location in New York. It is an Empire State after all. He is the host of co-host of Infrastructure Matters podcast and a CTA, Chief Technology Advisor at Futurum Group. It's our friend Steve Dickens. Hey, Stephen, great to have you on here.
Hey, Alan. Thanks for having me on the show again.
No, it's always a pleasure. We're going to have you on as a regular. And then speaking of CTAs, we have another CTA who's high up in the Rocky Mountains today. It's our own CTA, Mitchell Ashley, who's also CTO here at Techstrong. Hey, Mitchell, welcome.
It is a dueling CTA day, just the way it is.
I'm going to concede straight away, Mitch. You get to win the award there, my friend.
Oh, okay. Well, hey. Same back to you. You win next time. We all get a trophy. Participation.
Everybody's a participant. And then she's more than a participant, though. She's from San Angelo, Texas, and she's the editor of Techstrong AI, Digital CXO, and lots of other things here at Techstrong. It's our own Amanda Rosani. Hi, Amanda. How are you?
Good. Glad to be here.
Absolutely. So, guys, let's jump right into what we've got cooking today. Mike, there's a story up on Techstrong ITSM around cloud computing in the age of AI. What do we got?
All right. Well, it turns out that folks are finding this a little bit hard. There's more data. The applications are a little bit more complex. There's things called GPUs in the mix. And I might argue that which has been done in the cloud so far is relatively simple, but I'd love to get some input from our friends over at Futurum and to follow this cloud infrastructure stuff closely. Are you guys seeing a change in the types of infrastructure that people are going to try to manage, and what should they be thinking about?
Yeah, it's really interesting, Mike, you bring it up. We're starting to see, I think, some maturity come through to people, particularly enterprises. What have we been on this journey now? Probably 18 months with regard to AI being a topic that is in the public zeitgeist. And I think where we are now, certainly the way I see it, and I was out at HPE Discover, got to spend some time with Antonio Neri and the leadership team there as part of their analyst track. They launched a private cloud AI platform tightly integrated with NVIDIA. We're also getting briefings from the people like Lenovo and Dell. We're starting to see a lot of this workload, I'd say, find its way into production. And I think what I see there as a sort of key trend is whilst people are going to try and pilot something on the cloud, as they look at more production workloads, I see an increasing trend where people are going to move some of those workloads on-premise. That's going to be security-driven. It's going to be data sovereignty-driven. It's going to be driven by some access to the data. So if that data is on premise, moving the AI to the data, not the data to the AI. So I see a trend where almost a renaissance for the likes of the HPEs, the Lenovos, the Dells, the IBMs, with running a lot of these AI workloads on premises in a combination with potentially some of this on the public cloud as well.
I would validate that too, Stephen. When I was doing the same at SUSE last week, They came out with their SUSE AI. It wasn't an LLM. It was here is the kind of known good platform for running production AI applications. To your point, repatriating applications back into your own data center as well as up into the cloud because data is located there, tighter stringency around location and security of data, exactly to what you're saying. So we're kind of seeing the first wave of, shiny object LLMs, chatbots, copilots are in full force. But now we're seeing the wave of how do I do this in a production environment? Help me set that up so I can succeed as opposed to everything being a new science experiment.
Yeah, the way I would say it is you're going to have chat and LLMs as part of cloud-based services. We've already seen that with Salesforce and SAP. The use case for call centers and cloud-based call centers and also code assistants. I see all of those public cloud orientated. I think if it's an LLM on top of a corpus of data that's already in the enterprise, I see those are going to be on-premise.
And also other data for the app that needs to be accessed that's on-premise. So there's a lot of gravity to data in its location, to your point.
So Stephen, let's follow that to its nth conclusion then. So what is the definition in cloud computing going to be going forward if everything is kind of running everywhere and we're bringing code to the data, the LLM is on-premise? Is there a difference anymore? Is the cloud computing as a term kind of fading away in relevancy? What's going on here?
Well, cloud's a model, not a destination. For me, it always has been. So you can have a cloud model on your mainframe running on-premise in your data center, as well as you can have a cloud model running on AWS and running a serverless infrastructure. Cloud is, for me, a model of how you create services and sort of deliver those to the end user. Cloud is not a place for me. I know a lot of people say cloud and they think of AWS, they think of Azure, they think of GCP, they think of OCI. I don't think of it that way. I think you can run a monolithic application on bare metal on a public cloud instance and it not really be a cloud. Yes, it's not in your data center, but that's not really a cloud-based service. So I think for me, it's more an operating model than a destination.
Mike, we're also seeing more partnerships with cloud-based data offerings, like AI offerings that are running with Snowflake, right, as a data store that's a data lake that's already in the cloud, right? So I think cloud using Stephen's model in whatever form that is could elevate the data services that are offered either by the the hyperscalers or third party data offerings, because they already have security built in, they've got data management built in, they've got data that they've already collected in the cloud. So there's some applications that are ideal for the cloud because that's where the data is too.
One we've not mentioned so far that's perfect for this type of discussion is what Oracle's doing. If you look at where a vast majority of enterprise data lives today, it lives in an Oracle database. That Oracle database is maybe on-premise today. With what Oracle's doing with doing cloud at customer, exascale, Exadata, connecting those as tethered devices to OCI, being able to run Oracle databases on Azure and on Google, those were just recent announcements. I think as we have this whole where is the data, where is the AI, and bringing the data to the AI, Oracle's really well placed for this discussion.
Look, guys, there was a time I remember in 2006, 2007, people wouldn't say just cloud. There was private cloud, there was public cloud, and of course we've seen hybrid cloud and multi-cloud. I don't think cloud is going anywhere or disappearing as a term, but I do think probably the two strongest camps are your public cloud and your private cloud. And to Stephen's point, running some big monolithic type of operation, well, you can't really run it on bare metal per se, I think, on some of the public clouds, because at the very least, you're running on a hypervisor, and then you build on top of that hypervisor. But what we've seen is we've moved from the age of infrastructure as a service to application as a service or platform as a service. But there's more to this whole thing in the age of AI too. We haven't really touched on security, right? And I think at some level more important with the data quality of whether I'm on Oracle or a private in my own data center or whatever, I think security concerns are going to be a major factor in choosing what kind of cloud, where they're running it, what they're doing when it comes to, cloud computing in the age of AI.
Well, to back that up, we saw OpenAI, right? We talked about this yesterday with Rockset acquisition, right? And one of the things, we talked about performance and being a large reason for that acquisition. Security is another that's built into data platforms, data tools, data technologies like Rockset. So spot on. I mean, you can't have data without really strong security, or else, you're messing with folly for failure. So that is a given. And matter of fact, that may be another kind of gravity, if you will, in this whole picture that will attract AI to it, is I get the best security there with the data, with the platforms that are managing that.
Yeah, I think if you think of an LLM and this whole sort of stack as yet another opening up, it's an API, if you think of it simply, providing yet another application interface into my data. This is going to be mission critical data in a lot of cases. So being really thoughtful about that is where I think a lot of the enterprises are going to be as they move to production. Some small chat bot as part of a chat interface on a website is one thing. Putting access to PII data off an Oracle database to be able to provide sort of business intelligence and more analytical type workloads, that's a whole different ballgame.
I was having a chat with some folks from Dell, and they were telling me they were trying to sell, what amounts to a managed service is a cloud operating model. They have their Apex service. And they were telling me that they went to an oil and gas company, and the oil and gas company was just not having it. And the point of their executives were, we're swimming in cash. It's easier just for them to do a CapEx budget, and they already have the IT staff. It's a sunk cost. So they weren't really jumping up and down about, let's go to a cloud operating model. And I think there's a lot of companies out there that still have their own internal IT squads and their own infrastructure and prefer CapEx. So how many people are really going to move to this cloud operating model writ large versus just occasionally using a cloud service from AWS or whatever?
Well, it's interesting you say that. I think if you think of cloud as a model, not a destination, let's take the banks. The big banks are sub 10% adoption of the public cloud. But are they looking at providing microservices? Are they looking at complicated chargeback models? I was just out at FinOps in San Diego last week. A lot of the banks were there. Are they thinking about how do they containerize applications? They're doing all of those things. Just where is the computer that runs all those services? It's going to be in their data center. Does that mean it's not a cloud? Absolutely doesn't for me. You can have a cloud operating model running in your data center, maybe even air-gapped from the public internet, but it's still a cloud operating model. So I think if you break the distinction between cloud being a destination and turn it into cloud being an operating model, it helps with the thinking, has been my experience.
Let's almost think of cloud as a spectrum, not as a binary, right? Mm-hmm. What is the mix? And multiple things. Some apps look differently than other apps of where they are, what they're doing, how they're leveraging either public or private, and how they're interfacing. So I think it's not cloud going away. It's new uses, new models because of AI, in addition to what we're doing.
Yeah, what is a bunch of servers you own running Kubernetes in an Equinix data center with a really good chargeback model? Is that a cloud? I don't know. The operating model would say yes. Maybe the destination not being in your data center says yes, but you own the kit. I think, as you say, Mitch, it's a more nuanced discussion than AWS, Google, Microsoft, IBM, and Oracle equal cloud. Everything else equals private. It's not as black and white, and it never has been for me.
Let me ask you a follow-up question to that then. Do we need to rethink what we're calling cloud? Because there's a model that's starting to emerge where maybe I'm running the compute in the cloud, but the data stays on premise, and I'm using a high-performance network in between, and it's distributed, but I'm not necessarily moving data. And some folks I know think that moving data is the source of all original sin because nothing good happens. So can we rethink the way we build the apps and kind of leave the data where it is, but take advantage of the compute up in the cloud?
I think, it'd be interesting if I ran a weekly podcast called Infrastructure Matters, because that might give you a hint to my thinking. I think if we look, where are we? We're 18 years into the journey with AWS. You look at where I think the enterprise architect is now, where they were maybe 6 or 7 years ago. I was having a lot of conversations 6, 7 years ago. Public cloud's the answer. What's the question? I want to get out of the infrastructure business. I just want everything there. Serverless gets coined as a term. The magic sparkle fairies come and run the workload, and you'd have to worry about infrastructure. Don't think we're there anymore. My biggest sort of pushback to serverless is which server does it run on? And I think the enterprise architect is now thinking that through. Is it a TPU? Is it a CPU? Is it a DPU? Is it a GPU? Silicon's back in fashion. People are thinking thoughtfully about, what does this workload look like? What are its non-functional requirements? What is the best place to run it on what its type of infrastructure? That thought process is back in fashion.
Well, we think of cloud as the services and the virtualization of all that. Alan and I have a good friend, Mike Griever, who was with AWS working on the telecommunications side, the infrastructure side of it. And we've had VPCs for a long time, for a good 10 years, if not more. And there's a whole infrastructure of interconnecting a customer's locations, data centers, things like that through high-speed data connections. So they can do applications, either moving data or accessing data across those big pipes. So underlying the cloud is a lot of interconnected pipes, if you will, kind of like you used to think about, let's put our stuff in Equinix, right? And what are the providers? And to have 3 homed providers that I can use for failover. It's the same thing in the cloud. It's just we don't talk about those pipes very much, but they're all there to do what you're talking about, Mike.
So, Mitchell, let's follow up on that for a second. Do developers need to rethink how they construct their applications because of those things, or is there going to be some magic compiler that shields all that stuff from them?
My bias would be to think that's an architecture decision. Don't have the developers building their app assuming something is in one location will always be there. There may be a set of performance requirements that they have to meet or are asking the infrastructure to meet, the architecture to meet. But that data could be in one place. It could be in 5 distributed places tomorrow because we acquired a company and now we've got to figure out how to adapt that to our architecture. So I'm not saying we can completely abstract it away and developers will, just do a magical GPT query and that'll get them the data from whatever it's in. I don't mean that kind of, la la land scenario, but I think you need to architect it not with a lot of assumptions about where that data is, unless there's some really, really tight performance guidelines.
Yeah, Mike, I carry a rubric around in my head of each workload is on a scale of 1 to 10 on the following criteria: performance, availability, security, scalability, TCO, and increasingly ESG, environmental. If you can, as an enterprise architect, think through those 6 criteria, give a workload a score of 1 to 10, 10 being the most demanding, 0 being kind of, I don't really care, then you end up with a thought process of, okay, which infrastructure do I put this on? Now, maybe you don't encumber the devs with that thought process and that rubric, but somebody in the organization needs to be thinking about it, because if you want to run it on serverless, on AWS or Google or Microsoft, you're getting 3 nights availability. You get an outage, you're going to get a 10% service credit on that month's bill. Well, if you want to run a mission-critical banking application where after 45 minutes you get a call from the head of the Bank of England saying, are you still in business? That's not really the right platform for that workload. So there's a continuum of all those 6 criteria, and you should be thoughtful about where you're running your infrastructure and where you're running that application and that workload.
Hey guys, I got to jump in here because we're going to have no time to discuss anything else. I think we more than discussed this one. Let's take a break here on the gang. We're going to be back and we're going to ask how AI ready are organizations really? You're watching Techstrong Gang.
All right, guys, we're back and we're talking about how AI ready organizations really are. GitLab has a report out this week that says 78% of organizations want to be AI ready in the next 2 years, but only maybe half of those, 39% or so, are actually using AI to write software applications today. And then Sneak had a similar report talking about there's a disconnect between the C-level folks who think the organization is more AI ready than the rank and file do. And as you kind of look at all this, and based on the previous conversation we just had today, I'm going to start with Amanda. What is your sense of how AI ready are organizations out there as you kind of manage Techstrong AI? You see a lot more of this.
Yes. So as you mentioned, business leaders, the C-suite are very enthusiastic about implementing AI as quickly as possible. But they're so enthusiastic, they're skipping over important steps. They're not running proof of concepts, like the article said, and they're not giving proper training to the developers on how to use the AI technology. So they're missing critical steps, which is leading to problems down the line.
Alan, are your C-level compatriots a little out of touch with the rank and file, or what do you think is going on here?
I think, like always, the C-level folks we're always looking for the next shiny trinket and what's going to radically give us an edge in the business. And I think if we did a survey based and we divided it based on C-level, management, and practitioner, et cetera, C-levels would probably be the most optimistic about how much AI is going, or any new technology for that matter, but AI specifically, how much AI is going to change their business practices. I think originally a lot of C-level folks were, rubbing their hands in glee, thinking about reduced people cost as a result of AI. They never call in sick. They're never disgruntled. They don't ask for a raise. And if I can replace some humans with AI, wow, what a beautiful world it would be. I don't think that's the reality of it. And I don't think we're going to be in a position to be changing or to be cutting people back because their jobs are being taken over by AI anytime soon. In fact, I think with AI, we're going to hire more people because it's going to enable us to do more things, but you're going to need more people as well. So, I think, as I said earlier, I don't know if the bloom is off the rose quite yet, but I think we're finding out that there's a lot more to this AI thing than just, installing ChatGPT or something like that.
And it's really interesting you made that as that point. I look at it that we've unlocked a cheat code to use a gaming analogy, in certain spaces, if you're a developer and you're not using a code assistant right now, then what are you doing? That is, for me, is being able to unlock the cheat code that gets you a 30 to 50% productivity gain. If you're in a call center and you're not using ChatGPT or an AI or an LLM model to curate and give better answers to that assistant on the phone, what are you doing? So I think there's some really interesting use cases that for me have moved beyond the line of these aren't just should we pilot it, should we evaluate it. They're absolutely you should be doing this. I write a lot. I'm not writing on paper with a quill pen anymore, and I'm not sort of sending my research notes in via carrier pigeon. I'm using a tool like Grammarly, for instance, to check, and there's AI features for that. So I think there's a continuum of usage. Most of us should be using those assist-type tools if a developer's not using AI. But I think the other point you mentioned for me is I don't see that replacing developers. We've got a shortage of developers. Those guys need all the help they can get. Security professionals, if they're looking and using AI to look across security incidents, we've not got a shortage of security professionals. Those guys were overwhelmed before. So I don't see it as a getting rid of jobs. I see it as an unlocking a 30 to 50% cheat code to make the job faster. But you still need people in this loop. You still got to be, somebody's got to be writing something for Grammarly to check your grammar. It would be the analogy. Yes, you're going to use those, features in Grammarly to do the AI check and maybe to phrase a sentence better. That doesn't replace the original thought. It doesn't replace the person at the end of the call center. Doesn't replace the developer.
Yeah, and I agree with Alan. For right now, we're going to see more people hired in to supervise and make sure the AI tools are working properly. But down the road, we might see the job shift to something else. But I don't think we're going to just see a decline in jobs. They're just going to be new jobs.
And we've done this 100 times before. We used to have more stable hands. Then we invented the car, and now we've got mechanics. Jobs get replaced, and the economies pick up and move. Now, that's tough if you're the stable hand and you've got to retrain to be the mechanic when the car was invented. But if you look at the economy as a whole, it's not going to be a challenge.
I think that's a great point. Think about, and I'm not the only one who on this panel who would remember it, but think about Yellow Page salesmen, right? If you worked back when there were the Yellow Pages, how often would they knock on your door in your business or call on you, to get an ad in the Yellow Pages? And the Yellow Pages was the way to reach people locally, right? I was the first place people would go to, before there was Google. Where are all those Yellow Page salesmen now? I think they're working in my sales department here, but
that was the original SEO, right? It was 4A's IT services, right? So you could be at the top of the list.
You had to have a name that started with AAA, right?
Well, just look at it. How many people does NVIDIA employ?
Off the top of my head, I don't even know, but
70,000 people maybe? Yeah. That company probably didn't exist 40 years ago. No. And I'm assuming NVIDIA's I haven't looked at their website, but if I looked at their careers page, I'm assuming they're hiring a few people right now.
I just think that the expectations are a little unreasonable in this regard. Many years ago, I asked an IT person, I said, what's the difference between your organization and Google? And he said, well, the difference is they have a lot of engineers and I have administrators. And the folks that we have running these enterprise IT organizations, they're not well schooled in AI, and yet their C-suite comes around and says, we got to do all this stuff tomorrow. And I think, they all nod their heads and go, yeah, that's going to be awesome. But I think they're more aware of the gap between where they are and where the organization needs to be than the C-suite is. So are we, asking too much of IT folks in the short term?
Well, I think For me, this is a generational inflection point. If you look at where the internet was in 99, 2000, nobody knew how to set it up. We were all learning. We all figured it out pretty quick. You look at mobile and mobile apps, 2006, 7, 8. We didn't know how to do that. We figured it out pretty quick. I see this as one of those 10-year, 15-year cycle type inflection points. But the thing is, we're learning faster. It probably took us, 5 years to figure out the internet, 3 years to figure out mobile. It's going to take us 18 months to figure out AI. I see it at that type of, it's one of those big 10, 15-year trends, and we're going to figure it out quicker than we have the previous inflection.
I think what's different about this one, Stephen, is we're not the only one figuring it out. I think the AI is itself are figuring it out. As their evolution, right, gains traction and speed, they get better.
Yeah.
And I think one of the things we're going to have to learn to do is just when we think we got it figured out, the next iteration comes in and gives us even more possibilities and choices. So staying ahead of all that is going to be a thing, right?
I think the thing is you've got to embrace this technology.
Oh, absolutely. You don't have to. You could just stick your head in the sand and, wait.
If you want to write on a typewriter and with a quill pen,
God bless you. Absolutely. But it's happening. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Amanda.
Well, I just think we're going to see more internal education programs within companies to get everybody up to speed with the AI technology. And it's funny because I was watching a commercial this morning and I can't remember what eyeglass company it was because I was more focused on the AI part of it. But it's funny, they were embracing some of the learning curve issues with AI and trying to use AI to make their commercial, but it was kind of a joke or a spoof. The AI messed it up. And they were like, AI still has a long way to go, but, basically buy our eyeglasses. And I just thought that was so funny. But I do think we're going to see a lot more education and training for using the AI.
Mm-hmm.
I'm too busy working to be trained.
Too busy. All right. Hey, we're too busy here today, but we need to take another break. We're going to be back driving our Chevy to the levee on the day the shift left died. You're watching Techstrong Gang.
SecurityBoulevard.com is the leading resource for news, analysis, and education on challenges facing the cybersecurity industry. SecurityBoulevard.com covers all aspects of cybersecurity, including data security, DevSecOps, cloud security, application security, network security, security threats, and more. SecurityBoulevard.com has the largest selection of security content, featuring breaking news, blog posts, podcasts, and more. Visit www.securityboulevard.com to learn more. SecurityBoulevard.com, home of Security Bloggers Network.
All right, folks, we're back. If you don't realize it, but we take a lot of op-ed content into DevOps.com and our other sites. And one of those articles is titled Shift Left is Dead. It's by a fellow named Jason Baum who works over at Sauce Labs. And it basically posits the idea that we may have attempted to shift too much of the load for our responsibilities over to the developers. There might not be as many full stack developers as people think. And the question is where does all this kind of back end workflow processes from security to testing to everything else actually belong? Alan, let's start with you. I know you've been kind of following this space, but, is Shift Left dead, or is it just kind of maybe needs a little resuscitation and redirection?
So first of all, I know Jason Baum. I worked with Jason Baum. The next part is you're no Jason Baum. But that being said, Jason was trying to make a point here. And you always got to look at where the points are coming from. Jason used to work with us at DevOps Institute. He's now over in Sauce Lab, and they're a testing company. And, testing companies have a specific viewpoint on shift left. So you got to take it where it comes from with a grain of salt. Shift left is far from dead. The problem with shift left is, and I've had this discussion with my friends in the platform engineering world as well. Shift left cannot mean throw it onto the shoulders of the developer. It's not, that's not what shift left is. Shift left should mean and did mean we are looking at things, or we're going to do things further left in the development cycle, earlier in the development cycle. So things like security testing and making sure our code is of good quality, and that other kinds of testing, setting up the infrastructure or the platform, if you will. We want to do that as far left as we can because A, it's more efficient when we do it further left. And B, once that stuff is set, you want your developers to be able to go as fast as they can. Now, unfortunately, what it became to some folks is let's throw this on the developers' test because they're the ones sitting there at the left. And so let's make the developer do testing. Let's make the developer do security. Let's make the developer set up the platform. That should die, right? When you see surveys that developers are only spending somewhere between 11 and 23% of their time developing, coding, that's wrong. Developers want to code. We got to let them code. But that doesn't mean we should go back to our old ways and not shift these tasks left into the timeline of your software pipelines. It just means who should be responsible. That means security people have to shift left. Testers have to shift left. And I think that's a better way of looking at it than trying to say shift left is dead.
I'd 100% agree that it goes back to the conversation we were having about infrastructure. Ops and the enterprise architect personas have got to be part of this. They've got to be collaborating with the dev team and being able to say, for this application, we need you to be developing over here because we've done the analysis that that's going to be the best place for this application to sit. Those are infrastructure questions that devs shouldn't really have to worry about. So for me, it's about dev and ops working together as if there was a term in the industry for that, and then layer in there the security team. Maybe I'll try and coin a new phrase here, but DevSecOps maybe is something.
It's the first time I've heard that.
I know. Maybe it's new and revolutionary, right? But I think these disciplines, as you say, Alan, have got to move left.
Right.
They don't only mean the developers got to be responsible for it.
This is the same thing as the platform engineering folks a few years ago to get attention. We're saying DevOps is dead. Now shift left is dead. Who's dying next? It's just not the truth. So
I watched a video somewhere, and shift left is definitely not dead, but it was interesting in saying that it's about there are different methodologies. And sometimes perhaps waterfall is going to be the best one. So you have to analyze the project and the company organization first.
Well, you look at what Netflix has done. Netflix went microservices with their big streaming service and then took it back to monolithic because it was a dog from a performance point of view. It goes back to your point, Amanda. You need to be thoughtful about what this application is, where you want it to sit, how you need it to be secured, how you want it to be tuned for performance, availability, security, scalability. The answer is not, just throw it into a container, make it a microservice and put it on the public cloud. You've got to be more thoughtful than that. And that Netflix story about them going microservice and then going back to monolithic just speaks to that.
Steve, are you hearing the term platform engineering among the cloud teams? And because some folks argue that platform engineering is just the revenge of centralized IT, and we embrace DevOps to revolt against that in the first place. And there's a lot of tension in this conversation.
Yeah, I was at a Cube. I've been at the last 4 KubeCons. I've seen the rise of platform engineering there. I think it's just an acknowledgement that just throwing it up onto a serverless infrastructure on the public cloud is not going to be the right thing for probably 95% of your applications. It's got a place, and absolutely, the team. I've been briefed by the team at AWS as an example, and they're doing a great job at serverless. Keith Townsend just recorded a podcast with that team. Great team. It's the right thing to do for some of these workloads. I think platform engineering for me is just an acknowledgement that you do need to engineer a platform, and you do need to be thoughtful about workload placement.
To me, it's the new ops, right? For a long time, ops has been fishing. We heard of no ops, new ops, this ops, that ops. I think platform engineering, and along with SRE, makes up a lot of the ops. Guys, you know what? We've run really over. We had a long first segment. I apologize, but I think we've gotten the gist of the day shift left died. We got a special section today on Techstrong Gang I want to mention. My good friend Ira Winkler, and if you've never heard or met Ira, you really are missing out. Ira's a personality in the security space like no other. He's a force of nature. Ira has a long history coming out of the NSA, and he's responsible for one of the most famous hacks in the world, or discovering one of the most famous hacks in the world. From time to time, Ira's going to do sort of, much like we have Bob Resselman do here on the gang, a solo sort of Andy Rooney kind of event. And Ira calls it Byte Me. In this episode, Ira talks about kind of some of the hypocrisy around people getting into cybersecurity jobs and what the requirements are. And it's a kind of catch-22. You can't get a job without experience. You can't get experience without a job. What is someone to do? Here's our good friend Ira Winkler, and we're going to end Techstrong Gang on that. Stay tuned for the rest of Techstrong TV today as well.
Hi there, this is Ira Winkler on the first edition of Byte Me. Now, the name we came up with, yes, it's a good name, and I hate to say it, but we used AI to come up with this name. So anyway, that aside, I have about 5 minutes in my first segment to go ahead and, for lack of a better term, rant about something. There's so many things to rant about, but I think the first thing I want to rant about is the fact that, frankly, cybersecurity is not an entry-level position, no matter what all these people are trying to sell you, no matter what degrees, no matter what boot camps and things like that. At the moment especially, there are few, if any, quote-unquote, entry-level positions, and I use Dr. Evil quotes on that. Because frankly, the biggest problem we see is that everybody's like, oh, we need to bring new people into the market. We need to go ahead and have this, and you need to have experience before they'll give you a job. Well, frankly, yes, you do need experience. You're not going to go ahead and save the world without experience. People somehow assume that entry level means zero qualifications. That's not the case. I say, on an extreme analogy, to be a doctor, you need 12 years of, grade school, another 4 years of college, another 8 years of residency, med school, and all that sort of stuff. And then you can become an entry-level doctor. The reality, though, is in cybersecurity, most of the roles we need in cybersecurity are people who already have skills. So, for example, yes, there are a few entry-level positions, for example, like SOC analysts, where you can take somebody. But even them, I tend to hire people who are NOC analysts first, who have the background ability to work a 24/7 rotating shift and be able to go in, understand those cases, and understand basic networking principles. The more people know before they start a SOC position, which is one of the traditional entry-level positions, the better they are. That's number one. Number two, though, is people say, well, gee, I want to get out of college and go right in. Everybody I know that has been in the profession for any period of time has started with a different IT position. Entry-level positions in cybersecurity, people seem to forget, include programming, include system administration, include installations, include networking, include a variety of other entry-level IT positions that they then can go out and develop background experience for. This whole myth that you can just go ahead and graduate, or the certification fairy comes around and goes, bing, you're now certified, and therefore you can have an entry-level position, is a bunch of garbage. What people need to understand is cybersecurity is a sub-discipline of information systems, of computer systems, and everything else. And without having a fundamental understanding of the underlying disciplines, you're not going to be good at cybersecurity. You need to have the understanding of the business background, having years in programming, a few years, having years of administration, working with people on a help desk or something like that gives you experience in understanding what you're securing. Because frankly, the last thing you want to do as a cybersecurity professional is ruin the reputation of the cybersecurity profession by going ahead and telling a system admin who's been doing their job for a decade possibly that you're going to then walk over and tell them how to do their job as an entry-level person. That just doesn't happen. Where's the pipeline going to come from? That's another thing I hear about this whole lack of entry-level positions. Frankly, the pipeline is going to be from places like network administration, like system administration, like programming, like designing systems and maintaining systems. And the problem is in cybersecurity, we think we are this little snowflake. Nobody goes ahead and all of a sudden starts out entry level in just about any other profession that is completely isolated from the rest of the underlying disciplines. And we need to understand that. Again, get it out of your head that cybersecurity can be an entry-level position, and start to understand that to be in cybersecurity, you need to have a broad, fundamental understanding of the disciplines that you can get by going in other places that, frankly, have many more job openings right now. Because I know of people with decades of experience who are out of a job. So anyway, that's Byte Me, and I will go ahead and say thanks until the next time. Thanks. Bye.
DevOps.com is the #1 online destination for DevOps education and community building. DevOps.com covers all aspects of DevOps, including DevOps best practices and tools, DevOps culture, DevSecOps, business impact, continuous testing, continuous delivery, and more. DevOps.com has the largest collection of original DevOps content, featuring breaking news, blog posts, podcasts, and more. Visit www.devops.com to learn more. DevOps.com, where the world meets DevOps.